This is a really difficult question.
Oh, that's a great question.
Oh, that's a good question.
That is a great question.
That's a really good question.
I love this question, and I think this really is going to help me kind of meditate and grow on it.
Want to hear the answers? Check out Season 2 of New Media Lab with Robert Southgate. New episodes every Tuesday. Available on Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, and wherever you subscribe to your favorite podcasts.
Hey everybody, this is Dianne. Welcome to Biters.
And this is Marnell, and I'm just confirming that kids are creepy.
They really are.
Yeah. I mean, they talked about Children of the Corn, and I kind of had that feeling on The Talking Dead, but I was also thinking of like Village of the Damned, The Grudge, Pet Sematary. Like, there's a reason why there's so many movies about creepy kids.
Which there's the whole new reboot of Pet Sematary coming out.
Yeah.
It looks really good.
And creepy Children of the Corn, like 1984 Linda Hamilton, not the updated version. I'm going to be a snob about that one.
Vaguely remember the 1984 movie. I have not gone back and watched it, and I definitely haven't watched the reboot.
And it's one of those, it's so like they just get cheesier with everyone. So I think there's like 4 sequels and then like the reboot in the late 2000s. Yeah.
Well, I can definitely say this was not cheesy. This was not, in my opinion, the penultimate episode of The Walking Dead ever, but it was not cheesy.
Yes, I for one loved it.
I'm kind of on the fence about it, but I did it to myself.
Do you think you overhyped it for yourself?
I read an article the day before, or actually the day that it came out, but several hours before I had a chance to watch it. I read an article that really hyped it, and I felt like that article overhyped it. It actually ruined some of the impact of the episode for me.
What are you doing?
I know. Why did I do that?
Reading articles about The Walking Dead before you actually view the episode.
It was dumb. I totally spoiled this episode for myself doing that. I did.
Oh, that's funny.
So that said, tell me your rating and then I'll tell you mine.
I rated it one of the highest ratings I think I've ever given, because of course the first episode is a 5. That's I think there's maybe one other 5.
I agree.
But this was a 4.85 red hot branding irons to the back.
Those irons were really cool. Did you see how they made those?
Yes. My only critique was that I don't think a branding iron would have stayed that red hot for that long.
Oh, that's probably fair.
Yeah,
I don't know. I've never branded anything, so I honestly don't know, but that's a reasonable criticism.
Yeah. Yeah, that was really, but like that was a great little trick of the prop department.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Loved it. So what was your rating?
Okay, so this is my I spoiled myself rating. 4 out of 5 points for dexterity.
I almost, because they just had to get him. They had to get Eugene in there somehow, and that was great.
Was so funny the way those kids were looking at him like, "What? What are you talking about?"
That was a clever maneuver.
Yeah. And what was it? Something like, "Is your partner gonna mosey back over here?" or something along those lines. And the kid was just looking at him like, mosey. What?
Awesome.
So I have numbers for last week.
Okay.
And actually I just saw an article where there were numbers for this week too, and it looks like the numbers were actually down a little tiny bit.
That's really surprising because this is the episode that we have all been waiting for.
Yeah, this episode was really hyped.
Yeah, I mean, 14 episodes in and we finally learn.
Oh, now I have to look for that article that talks about the ratings for this episode because I didn't write the numbers down because I thought I had numbers, and I have the numbers that go along with last week's episode. Let's see. I can't type.
So last week's episode was Choke Point.
Mm-hmm. So let me see.
And this is season 9, episode 14, Scars.
Right. I guess we probably should have said that, huh? Oh, now I'm not going to find that article, but the numbers were down a tiny bit.
That's surprising.
Last week, Choke Point was 4.831, which was quite a bit down from the week before. The week before, we had a surge up to the 6 million mark.
Wow. I remember when we were like double and triple those numbers.
Right. And now we're like, woo, 6 million. But Choke Point was 4.831 in the overall numbers. And it was, let's see, number 1 in the 18 to 49. I didn't write the numbers down, but it was actually up a little bit from the week before. So it went down overall, but it actually gained in the 18 to 49 viewership. Now, I want to say that the numbers that I saw for this episode for Scars, it was still over the 4 million mark, but it was a little bit down from the numbers for Choke Point.
Okay, so I've talked about this before because we're not sports ball people. There is a March Madness for basketball, and I think that has started because I've been seeing stuff everywhere about brackets. So,
although I think the sports ball that was up against Choke Point, not against this one, I don't know, I haven't seen that, but the sports ball that was up against Choke Point was actually a college game.
Okay.
Although I don't know, March Madness might be a college thing. How embarrassing that I don't know that. Someone who's a sports ball person, like Brian, maybe, if you're still listening, Bri. Give us a shout out and let us know.
I just saw in the news that they accidentally put up the women's bracket like an hour or two before they were supposed to release it. So, yeah. I don't know what that means, but...
but it must be bad.
Right? Anyway...
So I will say for numbers that for a while on Sunday night, it was the number 1 Twitter trend.
Oh, yeah, I did see that. And of course, when it's like number 1 on my Twitter, I have to log off Twitter.
Oh, because you don't want to get spoiled.
Yep.
Yeah. And I will say, when I say that I spoiled myself, I didn't spoil myself with any details about what the episode was about. I just spoiled
it was just too hyped.
myself in terms of hype. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So our title, we talked about our title a little tiny bit last week, but our title was Scars. So the obvious thing is the X scars.
Right.
And the psychological scars, but there were a couple of other scar references.
Right. So Henry's scar reference for his leg. And then at the end, Judith thought she was going to get a scar. And then I feel like Michonne and Daryl were alluding and working through their mental scars.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely. And Michonne, I think, more so than Daryl.
Definitely.
I didn't feel like it was quite so obvious in Daryl, but then this episode was really Michonne centric too. So it was really kind of driving home that point of Michonne working through her stuff.
Right. You know, and I think it was when she was talking to Lydia, we're getting into a little bit of Roddy Potpourri, but when she was talking to Lydia, she said that she had done some things that she's like not proud of for her. And she said, I've made my peace with it. And I was like, no, you haven't.
That's funny. You're right. No, she had not.
No, definitely not. She had not worked through that like at all. No. She hadn't talked to anybody but Daryl, and even then they weren't really talking about it. It was just kind of like, you okay? Because I'm not okay. You know?
So this is also getting into comics corner, but so Henry referring to his scar and then Lydia saying, "No, I like it," was very reminiscent of Lydia licking Carl's scarred eye socket in the comics.
Kids are creepy.
Mm-hmm. Lydia is
Yep.
definitely right up there with the creepy kids.
Yeah.
And then
Yep.
I actually had a comment about Judith's question when she said, "Will it leave a scar?" I thought Michonne's answer was really telling. No, but it's okay if it does.
Right?
Just that was really a statement that she was coming to peace with her psychological scars more than anything.
Yeah, I agree.
Anything else about the title?
No. Chicks dig scars.
Yeah. I mean, it was pretty obvious, but I did think that those couple of small references to scars were things to pick up on, so I'm glad you mentioned those.
Right.
So our writers were Corey Reed and Vivian Say. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right. It's spelled Tse. Both have prior Walking Dead credits. Corey Reed actually has 77 producer credits for The Walking Dead.
Dang.
Yeah. His first credit goes back to 2014. He wrote Four Walls and a Roof. And then I just wanted to comment that I still want to go back and watch Consumed. I know that we talked about that a couple of episodes, and I still have not rewatched that episode, but he was the author on that.
Yeah, that is a standout episode.
Mm-hmm.
But I think so was Four Walls and a Roof.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So I think that he gets real credit for being the author on some standout episodes. Vivian Say has been an executive story editor on 13 episodes, and she's got 2 writer credits, this episode and Stradivarius, which was our really Luke-centric episode.
Right.
So she's pretty new to the Walking Dead universe.
Yeah, season 9.
Mm-hmm.
The second half of the season.
But I like her. I think she's done a creditable job on both of the episodes that she's worked on.
I agree.
Yeah, they've been good episodes.
Yep, keep it coming.
Now, our director was a woman named Millicent Shelton. And when I looked her up, I was tickled to see that she actually directed an episode of Preacher.
Oh!
In season 3,
awesome.
she directed the episode The Coffin.
So, was that the last episode?
No, it was like episode 5 of season 3.
Okay.
And she's got multiple really diverse directing credits. So she's done some comic booky stuff like Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, The Flash.
Runaways. Yeah. Supergirl.
Yeah. But she's also done some real mainstream stuff like Blackish and Scandal.
Empire.
Mm-hmm. 30 Rock. She's actually got a nomination for an Emmy for her work on 30 Rock.
Warehouse 13.
Remind me, what was Warehouse 13? Why is that sticking in my brain?
So they're finding all of these items that do special things, and they're warehousing them in. So it's like they
it was
they
kind
go
of
on
X-Files-ish.
They go on an adventure. Like it's kind of like the librarians. They go on an adventure every episode and try to find this. I don't want to call it mystical object, but something that does something special. So,
okay.
I've seen a couple of episodes bounced around. The other half has watched it all like twice. So,
so he must have really liked it.
Yes, he did.
The other thing I wanted to comment about in Millicent Shelton's background is she's got quite a background in directing R&B and hip hop videos.
Which is interesting given our featured cast member.
Oh, right.
Right.
She, interestingly enough, has a video credit for directing an R. Kelly video, which now, of course, is probably hugely controversial.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm. And some Salt and Pepper stuff.
Mm-hmm. And a Mary J. Blige. I saw that, a Mary J. Blige video. So she's got, I just was really struck by the diverse nature of her directing background. And she's actually got 80 director credits overall.
All the way back to 1990.
Mm-hmm.
And
she's also a very striking looking woman.
I was going to say, like, her profile pic on IMDb.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's gorge.
She is right up there with Michonne and with our featured cast member.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and roll into featured cast.
So this episode was Rutina Wesley. Rutina Wesley, which I think most people know her from True Blood.
And let's just say she's the person who played Jocelyn this episode.
Yes. So Di thought we should do Judith, but I'm pretty sure we've already done Judith. And of course, Rutina Wesley seems like a one and done character. Like, we're not going to see her again. So,
yeah, I think the sword through her aorta probably took care of that.
We could see her as a walker.
That's true. Michonne did not double tap her as far as we know.
Nope. She was a little preoccupied with a bleeding belly and a band of feral children.
Yes.
So the other big TV series that Rutina was in was Queen Sugar. She was on that from 2016 to 2018. I have not seen it, so I know her as Tara from True Blood, but I also know her from the TV series Hannibal. She was in, looks like 5 episodes.
I was going to say, I saw that she had a bit of an arc on that series.
Yeah, so she doesn't have a very long acting career. Di was kind of reaching tonight. She's like, I really don't have much to say about her. I was like, there really isn't a lot to say about her. I mean, she's kind of been, her big break was in a movie called How She Move in 2007.
Oh, I actually read that she said her big break was True Blood.
Yeah, that was her big break. But her first IMDb credit was, do you remember, like, in the mid 2000s, they were making a whole bunch of movies about, like, dance troupes
I totally remember that.
Yeah, it's
like the Step Up movies.
Yeah, and Honey and all of those. Like, so in the same vein of genre that How She Move in 2007. And then she was on Numbers. She was on one episode of that. And then boom, True Blood, where, that was her big break.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what most people know her from. And of course, now she was Jocelyn on The Walking Dead. She does have a short that is in post-production called Stucco.
Oh, I missed that when I looked at her page.
Did you look online or did you look in your app?
I looked online. Did you use your app?
Okay. No. I find that there is a difference, though. So if you're not finding something on the app or online, check the other one. Yeah, there's not really a synopsis for it yet. Wow. Interesting cast member names. Colton Haynes is in it.
That's
and for
lost on me. I don't know who that is.
So for those of you who are Arrow fans, he was Roy Harper on Arrow. So he had he had 77 episodes of Arrow.
Oh, and that's interesting because Rutina Wesley had a small arc on Arrow.
She did.
Mm-hmm.
She did. So she actually got her start. She has some major chops. I mean, she is educated out the wazoo. So she was born in Las Vegas. And what's funny is I looked up her birthday, and her birthday is December 21st, 1978. So she's a solstice baby.
And she's 40.
Yep. So on December 21st in 1931, Las Vegas legalized gambling.
Oh, that's so funny.
I thought it was funny. She was born in Las Vegas on the anniversary of the day they legalized gambling. But she actually got her start on stage. She was, she's the daughter of a Las Vegas showgirl, and her dad was a tap dancer. She studied for 4 years and earned her undergraduate degree in theater performance from the University of Evansville in Indiana, and she was accepted to Juilliard.
And completed a 4-year program at Juilliard.
Yes, and she summered at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts. And then she went on to be cast in a Broadway production of David Hare's play, The Vertical Hour.
All right. Did you notice that there's a Love Actually connection there?
How do you say it?
Bill Nighy.
Nighy. I think
I'm saying it right.
Yeah. So yeah, she's got some major chops. I'm really surprised that she is not in a lot more.
Well, I was thinking today when I was writing stuff down that her residuals from True Blood must be so impressive that she's probably pretty set.
Right? Yeah, I think she can pick and choose her roles, and I was really happy to see her in this. I really liked her character arc, even though it was so short.
I can't remember on our Facebook page. I will look later, but it was either Diane LaSorsa or Victoria Morris who messaged and said, "Oh my God, I'm so excited about Rutina Wesley."
I do believe that was Victoria.
I just want to say about Rutina Wesley, she was really kind of aged and kind of pretty down for this role because she is still a gorgeous woman.
She definitely is.
And I think it just definitely didn't show in this episode. I mean, they really, really kept her very plain and made her look quite a bit older than she is. The apocalypse wears hard on child torturers.
Yeah, and see, I feel like I've like almost seen her grow up because she was on True Blood from 2008 to 2014. She was in 80 episodes, and I've seen every single one of them, and I have read all of the Charlene Harris books. So of course I'm a huge fan of Tara. From I think it was episode 1 where she's like naming your black child after a plantation. How messed up is that?
That's a great line.
I loved her character on that show.
I have not watched all of True Blood. I've watched probably a season, maybe 2 seasons, and she was a really great character.
Well, it went off the rails, but it ended very well. So
that's good. And of course, Lafayette was a great character. Loved him.
And he only made it to the end of book 1. That was where they diverged. Is his character he was such a hit that they actually killed he was supposed to die at the last episode, but they made it somebody else's death, and they kept Lafayette because
they pulled
everyone loved him.
Dead.
They did. They totally diverged from the source material.
So, did you check out Rutina Wesley's social media? Does she have any social media you want to talk about?
A little bit. She's on Twitter, of course. She's got a ton of followers. She really, a lot of her stuff seems to go to her Instagram. So that's another one where, you can probably just follow her Instagram and be up to date on everything. But yeah, she doesn't have a huge social media protest. I'm sorry. I was looking at her Instagram page, and there's a protest poster. Presents. Thank you. But yeah, she does a lot of like retweeting of her work, and her social media on Instagram is kind of normal. I mean, it's selfies and pictures of her dog and her cat, and her at premieres and retweeting memes or I guess re-Insta memes.
Did she tweet anything about being on The Walking Dead?
It's not on her Instagram. That's funny. Let's see. If it is, it's way down here.
Huh. That kind of surprises me because she had a big role, even though it was a one-time shot,
Yeah. Yeah. And she's so recognizable, she's such a standout person. I absolutely love her. But Yeah, I hope to see her in other stuff going forward, but I think that Jocelyn is done.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep.
If Michonne didn't put her down, maybe Daryl did when he had time.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's funny is I remember seeing a whisperer who has a mask with dreads just like hers. Dreads or braids just like hers.
Oh, that's creepy.
It was kind of hard to see in the light when I think it was when Daryl and Connie went to rescue Lydia and Henry. But it was just like it's kind of one of those things that I don't know why it stuck in my mind, but it did. And then when Rutina Wesley was on, I was like, I wonder if they used her face as a mask.
So I thought one of the things that was really striking about Rutina Wesley's appearance, about Jocelyn's appearance, is that she and Michonne looked quite a bit alike.
Mm-hmm.
And when Michonne killed her, it was almost like Luke Skywalker killing himself in the tree on Dagobah.
Oh, wow. I hadn't even thought of that.
I'm not sure that it was intentional, but my brain definitely went there.
That's funny. Isn't it funny where your brain goes?
Mm-hmm. Brains are funny things. Well, so I don't have a ton for once for Whisperer's Corner. It was kind of a light news week. I did want to mention that article in Forbes that I read that ruined the episode for me. Basically, the author said, if you have not watched Walking Dead in a long time, if you pieced out on the series, you have to at least come back and watch this episode because this is one of the best episodes ever, if not the best episode of the whole entire series.
I have to agree. And so,
really?
Yes, I loved this episode.
Wow.
And it's not just because I don't like kids.
That's funny.
I've been hyped on this episode ever since they put the names on IMDb because of course we're finding out where the scars came from, and I feel like the trauma lived up to Michonne being so withdrawn from everybody, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I feel that it lived up to the hype. So this episode was, huge for me.
So you agree with that author?
I do. And for all of you who are just shocked and appalled about Michonne killing children, do you remember episode 1?
Oh, right. Of course. I mean, this show has a long history of being hard on children and horses.
Yeah,
So...
exactly. Episode 1, and then the season finale of season 1, we killed the girl, and then we kill some more girls when we look at the flowers. Children do not fare well in the zombie apocalypse, especially when they're being used as child soldiers. So, yeah. All of you who were shocked about killing children, I guess it was Michonne that did it, but we got over Carol killing kids, so we'll be fine.
Well, they did that poll on The Talking Dead about, has this changed the way that you think about Michonne? And only 10% of the people who responded said that it changed the way that they think about Michonne. The other 90% were like, no, she was justified in the circumstances.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, so another article that I wanted to mention, and this is the complete opposite. There was a really harsh review in Vanity Fair that I looked at yesterday, and the title is "The Walking Dead Totally Bungles the Resolution of Another Big Mystery."
What?
Yeah.
No.
And it basically said, half-baked writing spoiled the whole episode, and that they totally understood why big-name actresses like Denai Guerrera are bailing on the series because this episode sucked so bad.
They need to go back and rewatch and just sit down and think about their life choices.
So I am definitely not in the camp of the person who wrote for Vanity Fair, but I also have to say I'm not in the camp of the person who wrote for Forbes.
Good.
So I'm kind of somewhere in between the two. But, well, no, not so. I lean more toward this was a great episode, but I'm not thinking it's the best episode
the
ever
greatest.
of The Walking Dead. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. I read an article just before we came on that interviewed Millicent Shelton, the director, and she said that they actually tweaked the original script to this episode multiple times because she really wanted to make a point that those kids were ferocious and they were just coming at Michonne no matter what.
Yes.
And she is actually the person who wanted the dialogue where Michonne says, no, I don't want to do this, because she wanted to make it really clear that Michonne's decision to kill these kids was totally against her nature and totally against what she wanted to do.
You know, and I totally bought into it even before I watched The Talking Dead. And what's her name was on Walking Dead?
Yvette Nicole Brown.
And she did point out that, you know, child soldiers are a real thing.
Oh, no, it was Denise Huth who pointed that out.
Oh,
the executive producer. Yeah.
Yeah. And I so even before, you know, that her pointing that out, I totally bought into, because these children are children of the apocalypse. This is the only thing that they have known. This is how they survived. You know, they don't know anything else. So you can train somebody to do anything, you know, especially if you catch them young enough. So
I was going to say, I thought the point that children are especially malleable, that it's especially easy to condition kids this way, was a really interesting point.
Yeah. That's a really good way to phrase it, as conditioning. Yeah.
The only other thing that I had in Whisperer's Corner was I looked at a brief interview with Chandler Riggs, and he says it's, quote, super cool to have someone that he knows taking over Carl's storyline. So he's really on board with Matt Lintz getting Carl's story.
Aww.
He has known Matt since Matt's sister played Sophia on the show.
That makes sense. You know, and I also feel like, you know, Judith is sort of rolling into that too. And Negan pointed out in this episode that, you know, she's just as badass as her brother was.
Mm-hmm.
So
and then he tells her that.
Yep. I loved that.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. You know, it was really interesting. I was thinking about it on the way home tonight and listening to another podcast, and one of the podcast hosts there made the point that Negan seemed really real. And I thought, that's what's different. This is like the first time that there really was not a ton of bluster when somebody interacted with Negan.
Right. So he hasn't, I don't want to say he's lost his swagger, like he's defeated. I want to say that he feels like he doesn't need his swagger anymore.
I think that's more accurate, because I definitely didn't get the feeling from him that he felt defeated. Yeah. I felt like he was just more genuine than I think we've ever seen him.
And I kind of think that him and Judith's relationship, that's played a huge role in him becoming who he is, and hopefully the man he will become, because I'm totally on board for the Negan show.
You know, that's really funny, because I think you're in the minority. I think there are a lot of people who are still really, really at the point where they're just done with Negan in a cell.
In a cell, yes. But I think maybe it's because I love Jeffrey Dean Morgan so much that I am just here for it. You know, I want to see Carl's vision come to fruition. You know, I want a Negan utopia. Not a Negan dystopia. Saviors.
Well, I think it's going to be really, and we're totally in rotting potpourri at this point, but I think it's going to be really interesting to see where they take Negan, because he is certainly very different right now than he has been at any point in the series.
You know, I think it's all going to come down to contract negotiations, wherever his character goes.
That's really sad.
I hope he holds on till the end, because I think we're just maybe a season or two away from finality for this this Walking Dead Prime.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I just really hope that they give us a conclusion. I hope that it doesn't end up being canceled.
Oh, no. I really think that they would spend the money to tie up the loose ends. Like,
I guess if they're investing in the Rick movies, that they would want to.
Well, in the Walking Dead universe as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it ultimately comes down to a business decision.
Yep, it does.
All right, let's get out of rotting potpourri and get back to our goods, bads, and uglies.
Alrighty.
So, what was your good?
I loved Rutina. I loved the betrayal of a friend. The whole storyline of Michonne sees her and instantly is like, I know this person. I trust this person. Let them in. And she totally gets betrayed by her. And, just goes to show that you never really know a person, and the apocalypse changes people. And, I feel that Michonne was completely, her attitude this season, it was totally understandable, because of the betrayal that she had. And now we know why she doesn't want to welcome anybody in, and she just wants to protect her little community. And she got so closed off is because it was such a betrayal.
I thought that Denai Guerrera's portrayal of Michonne, like especially in the scene where she and Daryl are sitting in the playground talking, was really spot on. I thought that I really believed that she was as agonized about being betrayed and about misreading her friend as we wanted her to be, as we needed her to be. I thought that was really well played.
Yeah, and I mean it was a complete and total and brutal betrayal. I mean, it wasn't just like, I raided your pantry and your medicine and everything, and I left with my kids. It was, I'm taking your kids, and if you come after me, I am going to brand you and beat you to death. I mean, it was just so brutal and horrific. And I feel like Michonne has been completely justified in all of everything that's happened since,
I was thinking about that too, though. And, I guess that it just so broke something in her to be betrayed like that she reacted the way that she did. But I'm not sure, going through the same thing, that I would betray my friendships with Carol and Ezekiel and Maggie.
Yeah, but I think, it was just such a betrayal from somebody that she thought she knew, that she looked at others now with, a critical eye. And, I mean, she almost lost everything. She almost lost Judith. She almost lost RJ. I mean, she got slashed in the belly. And then that kid that she was holding off, basically had a knife to her stomach. I mean, she almost lost everything she loved.
That's true.
That was left in this world, So, yeah.
That's a really good point. On the heels of just losing Rick, that's a really good point.
Yeah. Yeah. So my good was actually the most horrendous thing about the episode was the betrayal of a friend.
Well, my good was relatively small compared to yours, but I thought it was really key in the production of this episode. I really loved the transitions and the way that they handled the transitions between the current time and the flashbacks. I thought it was really skillfully done.
Oh, that's my bad.
Oh, that's so funny. Well, I'm going to tell you a couple of things that I loved, and then we can launch into your bad, since they are naturally dovetailing into each other. So just a couple of examples. Like they showed us the manhole with the bar over the top of it, and then they flashed into Michonne walking across it with it looking normal.
That was good.
The blurring with looking for Judith then and searching for Judith now.
The parallel storylines, yeah.
The opening where they showed her and Jocelyn seeing each other for the first time. Just the transition between the times was really good. And I saw an article that really heavily criticized, in fact, I think it was the Vanity Fair article, really heavily criticized them for using the fight with the zombies to intercut with the killing of the kids, to keep us from seeing the killing of the kids. And I actually thought it was really well done.
And I do too. It's one of those things where if if left to your imagination, just alluding to something makes it all the more terrible because your imagination runs wild.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And, you know,
we didn't
saw
need
that.
to see all of those kids getting killed. I think that putting the scene with the walkers in place was perfect.
Yeah, and we saw that. I mean, they do that all the time in episode 1. You know, we saw it from underneath the car. You know, we saw the girl get blown off of her feet, and so it's never a direct, you know, on the nose thing for them.
It was definitely on the nose when we watched Summer, the zombie girl, get killed.
Oh,
it was definitely on the nose.
I think, though, there was a lot of controversy. They couldn't show the bullet actually entering her head.
It was Colt Python to the head. It was on the nose. I totally disagree.
I'm going to have to go back and rewatch because now I want to know if my imagination filled that in or if we really saw it. But I remember there was huge controversy.
No, we totally saw it. You got to go back and watch it.
Now I can never be sure also because it just depends on which version you watch. Is it, you know, the Netflix version or your DVD, or did you watch it live? There's always a different cut.
I have watched it multiple times in multiple different formats, and it is a direct shot to the head.
Well, and I appreciate that they did the whole cutting it with the walkers.
Mm-hmm. I did too.
Yeah.
So that was my good, is just the way that they handled the transitions between the current time and the flashbacks. I really thought it was very skillfully done. And I disagree with the Vanity Fair article completely.
So I will have to say, by the end of the episode, it did redeem itself. I've said this many times on the show before. I hate it when we do flashbacks and flash forwards. It's too much. And this episode, it started out, it flipped so quickly and so rapidly, so much that it was really hard to keep track of.
We're in your bad now.
We're in my bad.
Okay.
Yeah, this is my bad. So on The Talking Dead, they were saying that when Michonne found Rick's pistol, that, we see her and that was the past because she wasn't pregnant and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, she totally was pregnant. And when I went back. But
she wasn't hugely pregnant.
Yeah. But when I went back, they flipped so quickly. It was like 12 seconds of her finding the gun, and then it was 2 minutes of her being pregnant, and then it was another 20 seconds of her, not pregnant. Like it happened too rapidly. Like I feel that they needed to spend a little more time, but by the end of the episode, they kind of did. I mean, like we said, they flipped to present time for the walkers instead of the kids. But I really I started to appreciate the parallel storylines of searching for Judith and that fear of losing her, and how that helped Michonne work through her issues. But yeah, I have a really hard time when we flash forward and flash back. And so for me, it was a minor bad because it did wind up redeeming itself. But yeah, it still was a bad because I had to get off my phone and pay attention.
Okay, I rated it lower than you did, and I'm trying to talk you off of your bad. Because I really feel like all of the transitions were handled really well.
Well, and so I love what movies and TVs have started to do when they flip back and forth between time, and it'll be like in the present time, things have more of a red tone, and in the past it's blue, or vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
They have a way of coloring things. So
yes,
that
there was definitely a difference in appearance in terms of just the filmmaking.
Right. So you get that visual mechanism that tells you where you are in time. Yep.
I think the other thing that really was, aside from the very early flashbacks, that made it really obvious was Michonne's pregnancy.
Yes. Kind of like Carol's hair.
Right.
You can always tell where we are in time by a belly or a haircut.
There you go.
Yep. So what was your bad?
So my bad was not being entirely convinced that it would really play out the way that it did. And let me explain. I am not really sure that Michonne could have had such a huge change of heart so readily. She's had 6 years to harden herself against the other communities and to harden herself against letting new people in. And I just find it really hard to believe that one heart to heart with Judith is going to change her attitude so completely.
All right, so now I'm talking you off the ledge. So it's been a progression, you know. She did kind of acquiesce and say that we're not going to let you stay in Alexandria, but we're going to find you a home. And she took the other group to Hilltop, and you know, she didn't just turn them away. And then she took a second vote to see if everyone wanted to go to the festival or whatever it is. And said that she would live with whatever decision that they made. So she's been slowly transitioning. And I think it really just took almost losing Judith again to kind of shock her back to, you know, the way she was before.
Okay, I'm not entirely convinced, but I will concede those points. I didn't think about those being evidence of her kind of softening her stance.
And this is why we do the podcast.
All right, so what was your ugly?
Oh, badass Judith taking the walker out at the knee.
Yeah, that was a really good scene.
It was a good ugly. So I love it. Being a shorker myself, I feel that I would be at a disadvantage in a fight. And she just knew where to go and what to do and how to handle it. Like, she wasn't like flailing around trying to hit the walker in the head. Nope. I'm going to cut him down to my height and stab him in the brain. You know, like I just love Judith's little battle technique. I love it.
I will admit I had a moment of real fear when that walker grabbed at her after that.
Oh, and she's like, "Mommy, help me."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I just, when she just like, there was no hesitation. She's just like, nope, gonna cut him down to my height and then take him out. I loved it. There was no hesitation. There was no thought. It was just, this is what I've been training to do my whole 10 years of life.
So I will say, again, this comes from reading articles about this episode and several different reviews of this episode. There's been quite a bit of criticism of Judith as a character, and I disagree. I love this character. I think that Kaylee Fleming is totally believable. I think that her wise beyond her years shtick is totally believable.
Oh, yeah.
I really enjoy her. I think that the decision to time jump and to have her as a significant character was really great.
Yeah, I totally believe her character in the apocalypse. I mean, she's had Negan to verbally and mentally spar with. She's had her mom to teach her how to shoot and use a katana, and you know, there's no television. There's nothing else to do.
Good point.
You know,
there's Negan, algebra problems, and zombies.
And yeah, I guess she enjoys sleepovers with Gracie, but her and Gracie live two separate lives. So you can see how, you know, Gracie's kind of sheltered, and, you know, Michonne totally believes in free range parenting. Yeah, I completely, you know, think of like 200-300 years ago, you know, at like a 14-year-old to 16-year-old kid who was, you know, we sent him off to war. You know, they were basically adults at that age. And, you know, anyone Michonne's age was elderly. So I completely believe a 10-year-old can do what Judith does. And being a total smartass when I was that age, yeah.
Yeah.
And you never grew out of it, by the way. So what was your ugly?
So my ugly was the kids and the show and the way that it handles kids. Oh my God. It goes back to what you mentioned earlier. I really, really liked Denise Huth's observation that there are child soldiers in this world and that kids are easily manipulated.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that I also really liked, which was just a little thing, but I've kind of glommed onto it. I loved the share on Talking Dead that the show uses a child psychologist to prepare
Yes.
child actors and their families.
Yes.
I mean, that just gives me chills to kind of think about that.
Yeah, we've come a long way in child actors, you know, and how we treat them and the protections that they have nowadays.
Well, and when you think about the really adult themes that they're dealing with, I mean, I thought the point on Talking Dead was really good, you know, that they're talking to these kids about death and guns and blood
and
yeah.
And it's funny. In the show, Jocelyn, Judith said that Jocelyn made it all seem like a game.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of think that maybe that's how it was on the set, because of course on the set you see all the behind the scenes stuff, and you know, instead of seeing Michonne and Daryl tied up, you see them, you know, they can get down at will, and they're also standing on green blocks. You know, there's this you know, unrealism that you have behind the scenes than if you watch it. I don't have kids. I don't know how to raise kids, but I think like the little blonde boy, I think he's of an age where like I would have let him be an actor on the show, but I probably wouldn't let him watch the show at his age.
Was that a little boy or a little girl? Because I couldn't tell.
I think it was a little boy.
Was it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't let that kid watch. That kid's too young to watch this show.
Yeah. I totally, you know, I see because I thought Children of the Corn too, but I was also thinking the little blonde kid reminded me of Village of the Damned. I don't know if you ever saw that one. It's a horror movie with like genetically modified kids where like they can control your thoughts and everything. It was Christopher Reeve and Kirstie Alley. Like,
yeah, I don't share your love of horror movies.
Oh man, like I mean, look, Damien the Exorcist. Kids are creepy.
But I think it's really interesting to think about how you deal with the reality of a kid in this kind of adult theme. I mean, I just wrapping my mind around dealing with the actors.
You know, and the point's been made about child soldiers, but look at gangs. You know, people join gangs because it's a sense of family. It's a survival instinct. Humans will do anything and they're capable of anything when it comes to survival
and belonging.
Yeah, we are very tribal. I can see that even after Jocelyn was killed by Michonne, I can see those kids still sticking to their conditioning. Yeah.
So yeah, it was the kids.
It's all about the kids. And by the way, the kids are all right.
Oh, that's so funny. I think they got a renewal, by the way. That's Michael Cudlitz's show.
Oh. Oh. Well, we blew through those quickly.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, normally I think it's one of those where we always say this, like when we really didn't like the episode, we have a ton of stuff to break down and talk about, and we talk for 2 hours. But when the episode speaks for itself, there's really not much more to say.
Well, I've got some stuff in Rotting Potpourri.
Yeah, I have a few things too, and then we've got a lot of listener feedback.
Yeah, including some responses to the poll that you put up. Thank you. I was like, oh, I got a notification from Biters. What's going on?
It's not that hard, by the way. Thank you, Phil, for putting up a poll on Capes and Lunatics and making me remember to put one up on Biters.
Did you vote on the Capes and Lunatics poll?
I did.
I did too. I was like, who's the person who voted for... I can't even remember what it was now.
Okay, so which was a better movie or character? Aquaman or Captain Marvel?
Yeah. I was like, who voted for Aquaman?
Oh, that's funny. It was tough because, you know, Jason Momoa, but I'm like,
but
I like my chick heroes.
Really, in terms of the better movie.
Yeah, it definitely was. It was.
All right, writing potpourri.
Okay.
So I'm going to start out by saying that I think that this episode did one of the things that The Walking Dead does the best, which is to spotlight really good music.
Ah, yes.
So the song that they opened with
in
was
the beginning
really cool.
Yeah.
And I found out that it was a song called Souvenir by a band called Boy Genius. And Boy Genius is all one word if you go looking for them.
That's handy.
But it really, for me, had that feel of the music that I loved from season 4 and really set the tone the way that they did with music in season 4. So I was really happy to see that moment at the beginning.
Yeah, I was hoping that you would have something on the song because I didn't look it up, but it definitely stood out to me both times I watched the show. Yeah, I agree. So I not into kids, not a big babysitter, but when I loved playing the quiet game.
Oh, how funny.
It is the babysitter's best friend, the quiet game. And when it's over, you just play again.
Well, one of the things that really was interesting about that scene, and there were other scenes as well, it kind of really took on a whole different meaning when you watched it through the second time.
Right, when you knew what you know now.
Right, when you know that they made everything into a game, that's a game that they had multiple episodes of practice playing in way grimmer settings than what we saw it in.
Yeah, it just seems so much more sinister when you know that the kids were just playing a role, There was no intention of them living happily ever after in Alexandria with Jocelyn and Michonne and all of the Alexandrians, that it really was just to steal the children and everything we could carry and go.
So another thing that seemed really sinister, kind of tagging onto that theme, was those tutorials on butchering animals.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't seem so innocent the second time through.
Especially watching Michonne and Daryl strung up like.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I totally. I caught onto that at first too because I'm like, I don't know if you would need to write it down. To make the poster tutorials. You would really just have to run it through a couple of times with the kids. And seriously, people, it is not that hard to field dress an animal. Any animal, bird, squirrel, deer, anything. It's like shockingly easy.
Nice. Well, I just want to point out, I finally think that we have proof RJ is awake and RJ is not a figment of Michonne's imagination.
About the second half of the episode where we first see RJ, I decided that he was real. Yeah.
It took getting to season 9, episode 14 for us to believe that RJ was real, but...
Isn't there such a thing as like phantom pregnancy or something too?
There is.
Yeah. So I love all of the foreshadowing to the whispers in this episode.
Right. I actually wrote that down. I'm going to flip to that page where Daryl says some people just got so much evil in their hearts, they hide it like they're wearing a mask or something.
Yes. And even from the beginning, I feel like when Michonne was searching the banks for Rick and she was killing the walkers that were kind of stuck in the mud, there was one that she basically sliced its face off. And when the face landed on the ground, it looked like a whisperer's mask.
Oh, I totally missed that. I'll have to look for that.
Yeah, it like then Jocelyn said that the strong survive and thrive, and that is that's kind of what Alpha says.
You know who else that made me think of?
Who?
It made me think of Mary from Terminus.
Oh, yeah.
And then it also made me think of, and I'm going to forget what name she had, but the character who was repeatedly referred to as the filthy woman in Fear the Walking Dead.
Right. Right. And yeah, I can't remember her name. I know we made a big deal about how they called her the filthy woman, and I hated that. But she did wind up eventually with a name and a backstory. Yeah. So yeah, I loved all of the foreshadowing to, the masks and the whispers and only the strong survive. That was great.
So I know I've already kind of said this, but I just loved the range of acting that Denai Guerrera showed us in this episode. I really liked that we saw the softer, older Michonne, or well, younger, but older in terms of version of Michonne, where like at the opening she's asking Daryl if he's okay with being alone, and then she admits that she's not.
See, and I took that to mean that she's not alone because she was rubbing her belly.
Oh no, I took it to mean that she's not okay with being alone.
I could see that too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, but I really felt like we saw a very clear distinction between the past and current Michonne, and I really just felt like Denai Guerrera's range of acting in this episode was really amazing.
Yeah, I agree. She's there's a reason why she's moving on to bigger and I don't want to say better things, but I mean they are looking at giving her own Marvel movie, so
that would be great. I didn't hear that rumor at all.
Oh, yeah. So she is one of the King's Guard in Black Panther, and they're looking at doing a movie around those women.
Oh, that would be really awesome.
Right.
Where was that in Whisperer's Corner?
That's old news.
Well, it's news to me, and I read Walking Dead news every week.
Well, technically that wasn't Walking Dead news. That was Marvel Black Panther news.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but it was Denai Guerrera news.
So speaking of Denai Guerrera, and I'm looking at this is still in the open where Aaron comes and tells Michonne that Daryl's there and that Daryl's not alone. I had actually totally forgotten that she was part of the initial interrogation at Hilltop, so I forgot that she knew who Lydia was.
Okay, me too. The other half had to point that out. He was like, she interrogated her? I was like, right. Yeah. It seems so long ago.
It does. And I wrote down at that point, whatever happened must have been really bad because Michonne is scared of itty bitty little Lydia.
So this is not an original thought. I saw this somewhere else and I can't figure out where I saw it from, but somebody pointed out that in this episode it kind of seemed like Michonne was alpha and Daryl was beta. So there was that parallel too.
Oh, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I can kind of see it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have to say, I also spoiled myself a little bit by watching some of the teaser trailers. So one of the trailers was essentially the whole scene between Daryl and Judith.
I loved that.
I loved that scene, but I was like, why did I watch the teaser? I shouldn't have watched it out of context.
I know it's one of those where usually towards the season premiere for a season, they'll give you like the first 2 minutes of the show. And yeah, I watched it too. I always watch all of the trailers. And so I think I kind of tuned out when I actually watched it on the show because I'm like, oh, I've already seen it like 3 times. Yeah.
Let's see. Another thing that I wrote down, I was looking at the interaction between Michonne and Jocelyn, where Jocelyn is urging her to go and continue looking for Rick.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote down, did she urge Michonne to keep looking for Rick because it made it easier to steal the kids?
I think so.
Because Michonne was distracted.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Like it's one of those things, it's the sinister thing going back and rewatching the episode where when you have the knowledge beforehand and you look at everything in that different light. And I agree that I think she encouraged her to go out and look so that it would, she wouldn't have to confront Michonne. She could just get away with the kids and the supplies. Yeah. As if like you wouldn't go after your kid,
I kind of wondered, I found myself wondering where Jocelyn's psychosis came from, kind of how it evolved to steal kids and turn these kids into little soldiers.
Right. And I don't know if it was just a line that she was feeding Michonne, but saying that all of the adults in the group didn't survive. They broke.
Mm-hmm.
Did she start out with just a couple of kids that were orphans and then like start stealing them? Or did she kill all of the adults in the group to take over this like Lord of the Flies band of children?
It would be really interesting to know more of the backstory. I know we'll never get it, but it would be really interesting to know, because there is something very specific that makes you break like that.
Yes, I agree. And, we see people do terrible things on the show. And again, we're always reminded that the true monsters are the people, we see people wearing skins and blending in with the walkers. And we see people, taking over towns and treating the walkers. I always have to look when they do the gladiator style games with them and stuff. It's like, that was somebody before it was a walker. Mm-hmm. And it's one thing to just take them out because they're a threat to you, but it's another thing to like force them into some sort of game for your entertainment. And just the horrendous things that people do to people when survival is on the line. But yeah, I really wonder about what exactly it was for Jocelyn to turn her like that.
Because it sounds like she was a good friend. It sounds like
right.
She and Michonne had a really close relationship. Michonne mentioned that she was there for Michonne when her mother died.
Yeah. I mean, just a completely normal person before the apocalypse, and what happens to change you. Yeah. So a little bit of comic book corner. The name Jocelyn was briefly mentioned by the governor in The Walking Dead: Rise of the Governor.
Oh, I read one of those novels. I haven't read all of them.
So Jocelyn is an old friend of Michonne's. We pick up that they've known each other for years. And Jocelyn mentions their moments from junior year in school. Michonne tells Daryl that she helped her through her mother's death. 15 years has passed since the last time they saw each other before the outbreak, and their encounter brings us back to 6-year span following the bridge explosion. So, she's there in the books, but not in the same way that she's there in the show.
Is she really the same character from the books?
She's Michonne's friend named Jocelyn.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's super interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll have to read those books. I'm struggling through the passage right now.
I feel like Robert Kirkman needs to flesh out that one and do another little novella or something.
Well, it's Jay Bonansinga who wrote them.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
I love the way that just rolled off your tongue.
I'm sure that he got permission to write in Kirkman's universe, but Kirkman didn't have anything. He didn't author those books.
It says a novel from Robert Kirkman and Jay Bonansinga.
Bonansinga.
How do you say it? Yeah. Yeah.
I think that Kirkman just gets credit because he's the creator of the universe. He didn't write the books.
That's true. So yeah. I thought that tidbit was interesting, and that was a little bit of comic book corner.
Huh, that's really interesting. That's good because I didn't have anything other than the similarity between Henry's scar and Carl's scar from Comic Book Corner. So there's really no comic parallel for this storyline.
No. We are totally off the map.
So about the Negan interaction, although I said that I liked that we saw Negan really being a genuine human in this interaction, did you think it needed to happen?
No.
I felt like it was kind of gratuitous.
I think maybe it was setting it up for a little bit more in the future, but it is still unnecessary for the episode.
Just to justify Jeffrey Dean Morgan's paycheck. I like Jeffrey Dean Morgan. I like him a lot, but
yeah,
I remember you saying a season back, are we really going to keep him in a cell and just trot him out every now and then? And apparently we are.
Right. That's so funny. Yeah, but I do like the way that the scene went down where he's basically like, you wouldn't be down here asking me about her, you don't know where she is, do you? I love how he picked up on that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I just thinking about the scene, I think that he was in a way more genuine and less blustery than she was.
Yep.
She was really putting on a show and he was not.
Yeah, and it just goes to show you when you are responsible for so many people, you become somebody else. You have to make the hard decisions and do you have to do the things for the group and not just a singular person, or and you have to be the enforcer, and it changes you, and now that Negan's not that person, he's not the head of a compound or the enforcer or anything. He's, changed back to kind of a regular guy.
Yeah, he's basically had 8 years of being in a cell and being a regular guy.
It's not a total role reversal, because it's not like, Michonne's out there, bashing people's heads in with a bat and demanding a half their stuff. But, she definitely has changed and he definitely has changed. So
interesting. Well, I'm going to be interested to see how they take Negan forward.
Me too.
And there is some pretty big comic book stuff in the Whisperer's arc with Negan, so it will be interesting to see if his role in the TV series has any resemblance to that. Yeah,
I agree. But you never know. I mean, we are so off the map.
So another thing that I wanted to just say is that I thought that setting the final confrontation in an abandoned school made it that much creepier.
Of course. Yeah. Schools are especially elementary schools. They're creepy.
Those little desks. Ugh.
Yeah.
So one gripe that I did have is I thought it was just super easy for our heroes to get loose. And I thought, whoa, I must have missed something. I'm going to have to pay closer attention when I rewatch that. There must have been some kind of special trick that they used to get out of their bonds and to get free. No, it was just that easy.
They focused in on Norman Reedus's hands pretty early on, even before they branded him. And so I kind of think he was working his restraints loose. And I don't know if maybe he couldn't have had anything hidden. He didn't have any sleeves or anything. So I think he just was able to, maybe he's from a lifetime of having a terrible older brother and probably being hauled away in handcuffs a couple of times. He's just that good of an escape artist.
When he and Beth played Have You Ever, he'd never spent a night in jail.
Oh, that's right.
And he was very offended that she assumed that about him.
That's right. Good callback. That's super funny.
So the beating that Michonne took, oh my God. Jocelyn just beat the crap out of her.
And that's why I'm saying, it was a total betrayal. It wasn't there was no hesitation on Jocelyn's part.
I agree.
And, not just to beat your friend to death, but to beat your pregnant friend to death, you know?
And I was actually really surprised that RJ was okay and that she apparently carried the pregnancy to term. She didn't have a premature little RJ. I was really surprised that she took the beating that she did and that RJ came through everything okay.
Yeah, I mean, between the branding and the slashing of the stomach and the beating, and then just the
trauma,
stress. Yeah, the stress of the whole situation that, you know, and, you know, all the walking that she did and running. She ran after that little girl. Yeah. I was surprised too.
I thought that her being pregnant when she had to kill a bunch of children just made it that much more powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. But, and I don't even, I think if she made the point that if it was just her, if she didn't have Judith and RJ, she could walk away, you know? And she was making that point to Lydia about, basically the societies, Alexandria and everything that she could just walk. So I think that's what it was, is she, if it was just her, she couldn't have done it for herself. She was protecting RJ and she was protecting Judith.
And did you also notice that Daryl had a bloody knife, so Daryl had to kill too?
Yes, that I just read something that pointed that out, and I was like, oh, that's a really good point, because, yeah. Oof.
And with his past history of abuse, it just makes you wonder. It makes you see. It makes you really understand. I feel like I understand why he became so much more withdrawn.
Yes.
He withdrew, but withdrew in a very different way than Michonne did. She hardened and cut herself off from people, and he just withdrew.
But he could. He didn't have 2 kids.
Well, but the other thing is that I just feel like his reaction was much more of a reaction that you would see from a trauma survivor.
Yeah. Yeah, there was definitely some post-traumatic stuff going on there. Yep. I love the visual. You had mentioned it earlier about the when we flipped back and forth in time, the sewer grate, and then the one that was bolted down. And I just love that, you know, they recognized that even though that had saved them, you know, early on,
right?
That
it was a threat.
Yep. It was a way in, not just a way out.
Yeah, I thought that was really good too, and it did make me think about when Carl took them down while Alexandria was being attacked.
Yep. Yeah, because it wasn't actually the sewer grate that they showed that was bolted down. It was the one that Carl took them into.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was because the one that they showed was a manhole. And then the one that that Jocelyn actually went in was the one that was basically a round grate
that Carl took them into.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting. I didn't see the distinction. Thank you for pointing out the distinction.
Bloody footprints. Oh.
Bloody children's footprints.
Right. So, it's like child's play. Kids are creepy.
So, speaking of kids not creepy, were you surprised by the twist that Judith remembered everything all along?
I did. So what's your earliest memory? What age?
So I don't really know if this is a memory I have because I've been told about it so often, or if I really have this memory. But well before you were born, when my parents were still married, I remember a Siamese cat that we had.
Oh my goodness.
And I was like 3.
Wow.
But as an adult, I'm like, do I remember that because I actually remember the cat, or do I remember because I was told about Sammy?
Wow. I can't see Mom having a cat. That's crazy. Huh. I was 2 and I was in Children's Hospital recovering from surgery. They had to bribe me to take my temperature. I got a rocking horse out of the deal, and that's all I will say about that.
That is hilarious. Oh my God.
So I can remember from 2 and you can remember from 3. So I can see, that traumatic event that Judith has a memory of it, especially when there's no other distractions. You don't have social media and television and work. And you hold on to those things.
And was little Judith the same actress that played her right before the time jump?
I think so.
I thought so too. She was so cute. It was really good to see her again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it may have been a little bit overplayed, but I mean, not overplayed by the actress, but just kind of very dramatic. But I really liked the line where Judith says, "Then when did we stop loving Daryl, Maggie, Carol, the king?" And Michonne says, "We didn't." And she said, "Then why does it feel that way?" I loved that line.
Yeah, because it's so true. I mean, you made the point earlier that it's Daryl and Maggie and the king, and it's people we love and trust, and it's our friends and our extended family, but I keep going back to the betrayal of a friend, and it was such a brutal and complete betrayal that I really think that Michonne second guessed herself and withdrew so that she could protect Judith and RJ.
And she did say that she made a promise to herself that she would never bury another child.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, and I didn't totally get it until you saw the marking on the ground.
See, I knew that they were standing at Carl's grave.
I didn't get it until I saw the sea and the white rock. Yeah.
So that's kind of the final thing that I have really to say in Rotting Potpourri is that I just really loved that scene. I would have been happy if we had ended on that scene. I thought it was a little too convenient to just kind of run into Daryl, Lydia, Henry, and Connie. So I really thought that the scene with Michonne and Judith at Carl's grave would have been a nice ending.
Yeah, I completely agree with the just happening upon them coming out of the woods on the road. Yeah.
I mean, Daryl's like the big badass tracker, and they just happen upon him coming across the road. Okay.
Yeah. As if Daryl didn't hear the horses clomping up, with the minivan.
That's true. I guess he could have been found. He chose to be found.
Right.
Yeah.
And what's funny is before I watched Talking Dead, I joked about the 2 horsepower minivan also.
Oh, that's really funny.
Yeah. So we have some listener feedback.
We do. I'm getting to biters right now. So
and
go ahead.
We had one from last episode that I think it came down while we were podcasting or just before, but we missed it. Do you have it?
No, I don't. Do you?
I can probably get it really quickly. Maybe. So the poll was
no. It wasn't the poll. You said you were going to go to the last feedback.
Right, but while I'm searching for that, I put up a poll, and I kind of think that I'm going to try and make it a weekly thing.
Oh, good, very good.
Yeah, I'll have to come up with a question and put it on. So last week's question was, so what did you think of the Highwaymen? Do you think they'll be a good addition to the show like Marnell? Or are you hoping that they're soon to be cannon fodder for the whisperers like Die? And you could choose between yeehaw or ah nah.
So what was the ultimate outcome of the poll?
60% ah nah. So I have to say, they agreed with you. So you had asked, so what do you think of parenting in the apocalypse? And I think that was in reference to Choke Point.
Yeah, it was Choke Point. Yeah.
So Dianne Lasources said, well, Alpha is a good teacher to Lydia. Alpha hit Lydia when she did something wrong, like when she was suffocating from plastic, hitting her for getting captured. So when Lydia saw Henry and she punches him for doing something wrong, for looking at her, Alpha taught her well. LOL. Nikki Campbell Keith said, I like how Alpha and Lydia's relationship was reflected, much healthier, of course, in Michonne and Judith. Maybe juxtaposed would be a better phrase.
I thought that was good.
Hey Kirk, hashtag OG listener. And of course, Brian said, toss him a knife.
Right. And it was actually Nikki Campbell Keith who gave us the feedback that didn't make it to the last podcast that we did. So she said, hey, Real Housewives of Alaska, I loved your Guardians episode, 2+ hours. The longer, the better. This has been my favorite season of The Walking Dead in a long time. Alpha is a scary nut job, and all the character development of our longtime faves has been great. Thank you for an awesome show and keep up the good work. So thank you, Nikki Campbell Keith.
I agree. And, I love that we've settled down into our settlements. We're not going from place to place searching for safety or anything like that. We're trying to protect what we have. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I really am enjoying this season if for that alone.
Let's see. We got a post from David Marsh, and he said, how cute is Connie? Adorable.
So true. I love that they even worked her into this episode. She wasn't just a background character. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let's see, kind of going back to the poll that you put up. So it looks like Beth Landon, who, thank you, Beth. I don't know that I've seen a comment from you before. She thought that the Highwomen were cheesy. Shenandoah Grand Poobah Gore said, I don't mind the addition, but I think they were mainly added for cannon fodder. Brian says they will turn and give a critical location to the Whisperers. Diane Lasorsa says, agree with Diane, added for the cannon fodder. Pedro Pelez, I hope I said your name right. The leader, Ozzy, and probably one other will be parts of the Heads on Pikes. I like the concept of a new group being in charge of protecting the roads.
I liked him too. But, I think that mostly they'll be cannon fodder. I mean, we still see a few saviors every now and then. So I think maybe a few of them will survive. And I really hope Ozzy's one of them.
I mean, we say saviors who have integrated into the other groups, like we saw Lindsley Register's character Laura again this episode.
Right.
So I think there's a chance that we'll see some of the Highwomen integrated into our original groups.
I think so too. So I have some older feedback from Victoria Morris that I just saw. I'm sorry. She said, hey, Marn, and that's funny because my sisters call me Marn. Hey, Marn, I haven't watched any of The Ride before, but I saw season 3, episode 1 was in England, so I gave that a watch. Don't know if you've seen that one, but it's the one including the amazing lady who lives in the water tower in Surrey and motorbiked around the world in the 1970s. My parents lived just down the road from her, and the water tower is a local landmark. I loved that water tower. I would totally live there. My only problem is I cannot have stairs in my house because I like to adopt old dogs.
So I think I talked over you, and I just want to be really clear with people. We're talking about one of the Ride episodes. It was actually the episode that premiered Ride this season with Jeffrey Dean Morgan and Andrew Lincoln.
Yes, good episode. I love that they had them eat Vegemite. One of them. I know one's Australian and one's kind of English, and you really shouldn't have too much of either of them. That it's better in small amounts. But
I think Marmite is English and Vegemite is Australian.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
You said, this is Di, but how cool is that? And Victoria Morris said, I know, I was very excited to recognize the country roads, and we drive down all the time. I also enjoyed Norman Reedus being freaked out by swans. Didn't realize that swans were not in the U.S. They totally are in the U.S. We have swans, but I think our geese are more terrifying. My dad actually has guard geese at his house, and I'm not even joking. He doesn't have a guard dog. He has a flock of geese. He's got 60 geese, and I'm
geese
not even.
Can be nasty.
Oh man. And you wouldn't think those things could bite, but they have a strong beak.
Yes, they do.
It's not sharp, but it definitely pinches. Yeah, no. kids are creepy and birds are terrifying.
Specifically geese.
Right?
Chickens are not terrifying. Chickens are funny.
They are. Let's see. She says about this episode, I loved it. I was shocked. Oh, about this episode? Maybe. Nope, that was the last episode. I'm sorry. This one, so many good things. I'm not sure where to begin. I suppose good would be the whole premise of Jocelyn. If I was Michonne, I would have been thrilled to see an old friend too, and would have let her in. A very good reminder that you don't know who people are anymore. Her gang of killer children were disturbing, but I can see that happening in the zombie apocalypse. It's a child's grooming for another purpose.
Child grooming for another purpose.
And in this case, Jocelyn feels that she was protecting them by grooming them into emotionless killers. The whole conclusion of the horrifying situation makes Michonne's strange behavior completely understandable. I totally agree. Losing her faith and in her judgment of people must have hit her hard. She's one tough pregnant mama, but don't mess with her. They built the episode up, and I thought it paid off. The payoff was brilliant. Back to the roots of what Carl and Rick would have wanted. I like the contrast of Jocelyn's warped relationship with her children and Michonne learning a valuable lesson from Judith. Why did we stop loving them?
I thought that was a really good point. I really liked that a lot.
Yeah, and I had not thought of that at all. That was a really good point. I love it. Yeah, she posted us a gif of Rutina Wesley in True Blood and said, I've only watched 5 minutes, but I'm already excited because Rutina Wesley loved her in True Blood. I definitely did too.
Let's see what else. We got a message from Diane LaSorsa with the Instagram post that Brett Butler posted about that being their next to last episode. And she was like, spoiler? And I said, yeah, we talked about it, and it was definitely poor judgment and such a bummer.
Aww.
We both agreed that we really enjoyed her in Choke Point.
Yeah.
And some kind of rampant speculation about some stuff that happens in the comic book. So I'm going to kind of leave that until probably our season finale episode. But just wanted to say that Diane sent some really good feedback.
Yeah, she posted on one of the our posts that said, I loved it. I was shocked and horrified and completely thrilled. Of course, there were some problems, but overall thrilling. It was the children of the corn. I liked the way it started out normal, happy, and built for the tension until a scary moment. Loved the way they showed Michonne killing the kids by killing the walkers in present. Awesome. They never showed Daryl killing kids, but his knife was bloody when he came out by Michonne. So was to tell us that he did that.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, and so I didn't see it in an article. Diana pointed it out. One kid ran away, so that will be interesting to see her again. Great episode. I thought so too. So I was like, that kid's totally going to grow up and come back and wreak revenge.
I don't know. Kids had 6 years and we haven't seen hide or hair of the kid.
That's true. But he'd be what? Like maybe 13 now? So
somewhere between Judith and Henry's age.
He's biding his time.
Well, I think that's it for feedback.
Yeah. I have to tell you that I did listen to Aim for the Head podcast. I listened to like the 2 previous episodes, and I don't know if this episode Scars is out, but
no, it sounds like they're going to be a little late this week because Steve is traveling.
Yeah, I try not to listen to anything because I don't want my opinion of it to be skewed before I talk to you. Mm-hmm. So I try to stay away from that stuff, but I am looking forward to hearing what they thought about Scars. And I really like how they have a completely different format of how they talk about the show. And I love the juxtaposition of the 2 different style shows. And some of the really good points that they make that we didn't touch on, and vice versa. So, I think I will be a listener from here forward.
Yes, they are definitely in my queue.
And I posted on their page that we gave them a shout out and we liked their show. And Diana messaged back and said, thank you so much for the kind words. Just started listening as well. I'm a week behind, so I haven't listened to your take on Choke Point yet. It's up next. You guys are hilarious too. Love your chemistry, Diana.
Yay.
So
that was very nice.
So shout out to you, Diana. But that's all I got for this week.
Only an hour and a half.
Only an hour and a half. We could talk about our dogs or our jobs or something.
We already have.
That's true. That's definitely true.
We got to think about what we're going to do in the off season, though, because it sounds like it's going to be a bit before there are any episodes of Fear.
Yeesh.
There's no date yet, but it sounds like they're talking summer.
Wow. Is that unusual? I feel like we usually just roll straight in.
Yeah, it feels like it's a lot later than it typically is.
We've only got 2 episodes left.
I know.
The Calm Before and The Storm.
I really think they're going to be comic book heavy.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I really looked forward to this episode because we got a little bit of closure on what's caused everything this season. But the next episode looks really, really great. The fair and the kingdom is underway. And with all 4 communities coming together in celebration for the first time in years, while some packs are renewed, other deals will come to a much steeper price. So we will see Oceanside.
Oh, good. Yes.
The 4 communities are coming together. So I'm very excited about next episode.
I saw a spoiler online and stopped myself from looking at it, and I'm not going to read any articles before I watch it.
No, don't. Yeah, delete.
Yep, news-free zone until after the episode from here on out.
It's tough sometimes. So nobody out there read any spoilery articles, and we'll try not to spoil any more for you on the show.
But vote in Marnell's next poll.
Yeah, I'm going to have to come up with a good question. One that wasn't asked on The Talking Dead, because they asked a lot of questions. They took a lot of polls.
They did. I'm sure you'll come up with something. I'm confident.
All right, we'll see. So go. I think there's still, by the time you listen to this, there probably won't be any time to vote in the Highwaymen poll. But if there's a new one up, go to the page and vote in the poll. Like and share the page. Give us some feedback. We love listening. We love hearing from you. We love reading your comments. Even if they're bad. Even if you're telling us that we spoiled it and we're wrong. Constructive criticism is always a good thing.
There you go.
So until next week,
just remember
take it one dead day at a time. Not bad.
Not bad at all.
All right, everyone. Have a good week.
All right. Have a good week. Bye.
Bye.